Please join me inside of the all-new 2022 Honda Civic, the 11th generation. Fully redesigned, and it's now sporting this Euro-esque design, right? So first of all, let's talk about that because, well, a lot has changed here, but the exterior is probably the biggest thing that most people are talking about because for whatever reason, everybody just despised the previous generation for the way it looked. Me personally, I never really had an issue with it, if I'm going to be honest with you. I thought it was a fine, kind of cool looking compact car. There was no issues there. Well, sorry, I say compact car in quotations. That thing was still very massive. But anyway, this one now, the front end, the rear end, it's all kind of chiseled out, looks clean. The rear taillights kind of remind me of a VW Jetta, but whatever, I don't care. It looks incredible. And there will be a hatchback model coming very soon, of course, and that's going to have tremendous amounts of space in it. However, I really prefer the looks of this sedan a lot. And this is the fully loaded touring trim, stickers for just under $30,000, about $29 and some change. And it's got these pretty cool looking 18-inch wheels wrapped in 235 wide tires. The smallest wheel size you can get is a 16-inch wheel setup, and that's going to be with the base trim. The EX, which is one trim level below this, will have 17-inch wheels on it. But anyway, please do leave your thoughts below in the comments section. I would like to hear your thoughts about the appearance and the look of this. Let's go ahead and let's transition over into this drive. Take off this little traction control here. And I don't really ever drive around in the sport mode. I just like the normal, but let's go ahead. Switch it into sport mode anyway. We have ourselves here the 1.5 liter turbocharged engine. This is the premium engine option, the optional engine option. Turbocharged, and it produces 180 horsepower and about 177 pounds-feet of torque. The good thing about this is it does take regular fuel, 87. Even with that, it's rated to get 31 in the city and 38 on the highway, and that is accurate. This will get like over 30 mpgs for sure in the real world. And it is mated to the CVT transmission, and a lot of people have an issue with CVTs, but trust me, the new CVTs, they have come a long way for sure. So let's kind of come to a little stop here. Give it a little launch, I guess. It's not the quickest thing in the world, I'm not gonna lie. It's more than adequate for city driving, but once you're out on the highway or something, then you're gonna want a little bit more out of this engine. But for like 90% of driving, trust me, like from 35 to 75 miles an hour, you're gonna be just fine with this. But I did have it out on the highway, and I did do some pretty good speeds out there, and the stability is excellent. And I think this transmission does a pretty good job behaving kind of like a traditional automatic and also exerting some of those CVT behaviors as well. So I think it's a pretty good transmission. The main highlight with this all new Civic is the body structure. This is the most rigid Honda Civic ever produced. And you notice that right away. Like if you're an owner of the previous generation Civics and you drive this for the first time, you're immediately going to notice just how much more solid this chassis feels. And the rear track got widened a little bit, and the wheelbase has grown by about 1.4 inches. So what you're going to get is a slightly better ride due to the longer wheelbase, and also a little bit better stability due to the wider track in the rear. And this is a very stable car, no issues there. It's a very safe driving car. I had this car through some different environments. Okay, I drove this car very hard in pouring rain, right? And it doesn't even feel like it's struggling at all. It's always got grip all the time. Puts down the power really well. Granted, it's not like a ton of power to put down, but I'm just saying. As front-wheel drive cars goes, man, nobody's touching Honda, dude. I mean, as far as normal cars goes, period. I mean, Honda is the best handling normal car that you can possibly get, no questions asked. However, I will say the Mazda 3, okay, I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons with that car because that is, in my opinion, the pinnacle of kind of quality slash luxury in terms of normal vehicles. Okay, that's a really impressive car, and you're probably gonna be tied between this vehicle and the Mazda 3 most likely. Okay, this definitely handles better than the Mazda 3, there's no doubt about it. In fact, I did an Acura TLX review. I will leave a link to that in the description box. And in that video of the TLX, I said that that car had the chassis of like a six-figure vehicle. And it's true. I mean, I was kind of comparing it to like the CLS 53 Mercedes AMG that I just drove during that time. And the chassis and the body control of that TLX really reminded me of that AMG. And in the same sense, this Civic, the handling characteristics, the chassis control on this, it reminds me of a vehicle that's far above its class, really. Like, this is like almost entry-level Euro car territory. It feels like you're driving a European car, honestly. There's really nothing Japanese about the way that this vehicle feels. Whether it's a good or a bad thing to some of you, I think it's a great thing. I think they really nailed it with this vehicle. The suspension also got recalibrated and retuned. The vehicle's got new bushings as well. And it's all to cope and to manage with the stiffer chassis, to take advantage of it as much as possible. And Honda also quotes that because this chassis is so much stiffer now, it also helps with the NVH, helps it to quiet down the vehicle as well, to absorb bumps and everything. And that kind of brings me to the ride quality. So the ride quality is something interesting. So this is a very comfortable machine, no problems there, but it always lets you know what's going on with the road. Like, you will feel some of the bumps. It doesn't even feel jittery. It just lets you know all the little small bumps, the nuances. It just communicates with you. That's what's going on here. The steering is an electric steering rack that also got retuned. One of the things I did notice, though, I will say, the previous generation Civic Sport that I tested out with the CVT, that did feel a tad bit quicker, in my opinion, than this vehicle, but it's not by much. It's just something I noticed. And I did not read about this, but I did hear that the touring models, like this fully loaded one that you see here, this is actually a little bit quieter than the non-touring trim levels of the Honda Civic. I don't know if that's true or not, because I haven't driven the other Civics that are not the touring trims. This is the only new Civic I've driven. But if that's the case, it's just something for you to check out if you're at a dealership. Even the way that this is as a touring trim level, I would say that the Mazda 3 is a bit quieter than this. A lot of that could be due to the tires on this vehicle. It's a fine tire. It's like a Goodyear tire. It's like a 560 Threadwear. I think that the Bridgestone Torrenzas that the Mazda 3 had were a little bit quieter. Just something to note, I guess. But it's not a big deal. The Civic is still one of the quietest compact cars that you can get. And again, I say compact in quotes there. The other thing to note, so if you would like, Honda does offer the new Civic in a manual transmission. That's right, they still make one. However, I think that's only available with the hatchback, which is yet to be released. And it's only going to be available on the Sport and the Sport Touring trims of the hatchback. When I went on Honda's website to spec out a Civic Sedan Sport, it did not come with a manual transmission. At least I did not see an option for it on the website. So most likely, I think it's going to be reserved only for like the future performance versions and the Sport Touring trims of the hatchback. And the hatchback is going to be very pragmatic. It's going to have massive amounts of space in the back. So that might be the model to consider. And I do think this engine is the one to go with, this 180 horsepower, because any less than this, I think, is going to feel a little bit too lethargic. So something to keep in mind. But there you go, got yourself a little acceleration look there. Certainly has some CVT characteristics, but again, that could be alleviated with the manual transmission. So this car would be pretty epic with the manual. Like, certain cars, you can drive them and you can tell like which cars need a manual and which ones don't. This is one of those vehicles where that would be a huge help for this car. It just drives so well. It's really between this and the Mazda 3, honestly. And me personally, I would try to get like an EX model. This thing starts at around $21,000, the new Civic. I think that's also what the Mazda 3 starts at. But for around 30 grand, you can actually get a turbocharged Mazda 3, and that's going to be easily the quickest compact in the segment for sure. But the problem is the fuel economy is really going to suck. If you drive the Mazda 3 Turbo in any type of enthusiastic manner, it's going to get terrible fuel economy. So something to keep in mind, this thing, you can just beat the hell out of it 24/7 and it'll still return like close to 30 mpg or even at 30 mpg. So that's just really impressive with this car. They've been able to do so much. It weighs like only 3,000 pounds, but it doesn't feel like a tin can. It feels like a nice, solid, well-built, like a Euro car. The main areas where this stands out is the body control, the resale value of a Honda, of course, it's going to be amazing, and the fuel economy. So that's kind of where it edges it out against the Mazda 3. With that established, let's go ahead and let's transition over into the interior segment now. This interior also kind of follows the exterior. It's just trying to be clean and minimalistic, and I really do appreciate that. The quality of this interior has really gone up. However, that's not to say that the previous Honda products or Acura products were bad. Hondas, Acuras, and I guess Toyotas, they've always been very solid. That's something you can never take away from these vehicles. Even though in the past maybe they didn't use like the best materials or whatever, but you can always get into like a 20-year-old Honda with like 300,000 miles on it, and it's never going to be like creaking or rattling or anything like that. It's always going to be well built and well put together. And this has that, but now it also has like this really nice design, but all the buttons and knobs and everything, they all have like this cool clicky sensation to it. It just feels like quality, and that's just something that Mazda has had. But I feel like both of these companies took that page out of Audi's book. So that's kind of what these new Mazda and Honda interiors are reminding me of, is what Audi tends to do. So I like how they give you the physical buttons and they still give you a very good infotainment screen, which I'll come back to in a little bit. But other design features I really liked, and even Honda themselves, they were pretty proud of this because they mentioned it in their press media kits. It's this HVAC venting, right? This kind of metal looking honeycomb grill that's layered on top of the climate control vents. It looks amazing. It looks like a metal fence that you might find in like a fine home or like a nice staircase or something like that. It really sets off the interior. It's a really nice way to hide the HVAC vents. And when you kind of move the vents around, it makes like a nice clicking sound. Same thing with the knobs and buttons and everything. But unfortunately, we do have a lot of this gloss black plastic being used around here, and that's also going to attract a lot of this dust, debris, etc. So that's a little unfortunate, but really there's nothing else to fault here. I will say Mazda's interiors, with their more supple, soft leathers and their wood trimmings and everything, still does stand out and gives a slightly more premium effect. However, the Mazda interior cannot match this in terms of solidity. So that's what I'm saying. When you just kind of put everything together, this Civic just becomes a great package overall, is what I'm trying to say. So features wise, we have heated seats, which you can also get with the EX trim. You have this 9-inch infotainment screen, which is bespoke to this touring trim. It works great. It's quick to respond. You also have a volume knob right there as well. And it's got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a wireless charger here in the middle with USB connectivity. You got your drive mode selections. You also have a 10.2-inch gauge cluster screen, also bespoke to the touring trims. Looks great. The quality of the screen is excellent. Easy to use, no problems there. Steering wheel, a little bit on the thinner side, but I do like it. It's a great thing to grip onto. It is leather wrapped, of course. You do have paddle shifters, but it's not really worth your time using. It's kind of slow to respond and react, but it is nice to have, I suppose. You have the automatic headlights, automatic windshield wipers, parking sensors, and you get the standard Honda safety technology that you get across the board, like the pre-collision assistance and the traffic jam assistance, which is new for 2022. I think it now utilizes like a camera-based system versus a radar-based system to detect traffic, etc. And we do have blind spot monitoring here, which you can only get with the EX trim and this touring trim level on the sedans. Another thing that Honda did was they actually redesigned and created a new airbag system. So it's a new airbag that's meant to protect you from any major head injuries, neck injuries, things like that. So that's really cool to see. I mean, the body structure and everything about this vehicle, it's been created for the next generation of crash testing. Hondas, they've always been very safe vehicles, but I'm glad to see that they continue to evolve in the safety department. Even the gear shifter has a nice clicky feel to it, and as I mentioned before, even the doors, when you open and close them, they have a nice solid feel to them. even though this thing only weighs like 3,000 pounds. We have the Bose audio system, which is a 12 speaker unit that's only available on the touring trims. But if you get the sport trims and up, you will get like an upgraded 8 speaker system over the base. And this Bose system, it sounds pretty good. It sounds almost identical to the Mazda Bose systems. Has a lot of bass in it as well, so if you like that, there you go. We have the leather seats here. They're pretty comfortable. Center armrest has a great amount of space, as well as a glove box. You also have a sunroof here as well. Automatic window switches only for the front 2 windows here. These are not double pane glass. However, that could help quieting this vehicle down, but it's a compact segment vehicle, so it's not a big deal. Decent amount of space in the door pockets. And in the rear seats, of course, I mean, you can actually be a real life adult and fit back there, no problems. The Mazda 3, there's an abysmal amount of space back there. I mean, it's a joke, the rear legroom in the Mazda 3. But this is cavernous. You can actually stretch out back there, and you can actually fold those seats 60-40, but you don't have any vents back there. That's something to keep in mind. The trunk space is massive, and you have a spare tire back there as well. So even the sedan, it's plenty practical. If you like the looks of it, definitely go ahead and get it. You don't necessarily need to get the hatchback, but this, when you fold down the seats, all the cubby spaces that you have inside, I mean, there's plenty of practicality here, no problems. The hatchback just takes it to level 11. Yeah, overall thoughts on this vehicle, man. Yeah, it's definitely one to either put on your short list or to just straight out buy it. I mean, you're never going wrong with the Civics. Even the previous generation Civic, none of the current compact vehicles are going to be able to compete with it in terms of its driving dynamics, and that continues on here because they continue to improve the driving dynamics. I mean, I've pretty much driven every compact car at this point, and none of them are bad per se, and I'm sure almost everybody's going to be happy with any of the choices in this market or this segment. There's a reason to get just about all of them. Either one leases out better than the other, or there's better interest rates, or whatever. There's just different things to make people go with, you know, any of these compact vehicles. But for me, the Civic and the Mazda 3 are the 2 standout vehicles in the class, but people eat up Hondas like there's no tomorrow. I mean, every Honda dealership I go to in my area is just packed with people. It's just the car that people trust, and for good reason, man. It's a phenomenal driving experience. It's one of those vehicles that it really hits above its weight class. It feels way more premium than what it really is, actually. That's how good the driving demeanor and now this interior is. So enjoy it, man. You're not going wrong with it. And if you're already an owner of this vehicle, I would love to hear your thoughts about it. But hopefully you found value with this review. Thanks again for watching. Take care, and goodbye.